I raised my sister's child as my own, then she returned and took him like I meant nothing. He's so tiny, I whispered in the dim hospital room, cradling my nephew like a fragile bird. Newborn Elijah's skin smelled of sweet milk and rosewater shampoo. His eyes fluttered open and closed, as if deciding between dream and reality. I'm Lena, almost 30, graphic designer by trade and by circumstance. My sister, Ava, had lived a life of sharp edges, kicked out of college at 19, drifting from one dead-end job to another, somehow always skirting disaster. So when I got her panicked 3 a.m. call, "Lena, please, I'm not ready. Will you just keep him for a little while?" I knew a little while would stretch further than either of us imagined. I'd rushed to the hospital, adrenaline buzzing, and when I first saw her newborn son, something inside me softened. Ava was pale and trembling, lines of guilt carved deep on her face. Doctors hovered, warning her of postpartum complications. Nurses suggested foster care. But Ava, tears in her eyes, begged, "He's all I have right now. Just for a week." A week seemed reasonable. A week to steady her life, find a job, rent an apartment. I was already living in my tiny one-bedroom downtown, but I could shuffle some things around. I tucked baby blankets into my tote and carried Elijah home, heart fluttering with protectiveness. That first week, I learned his rhythm. He cried for diaper changes, feasted on formula, and found solace in my heartbeat. Nights blurred into feeds and lullabies, dawns into fresh diapers and tiny yawns. In the nursery corner of my apartment, a painted mural of yellow sunflowers I'd designed myself. Elijah's first smile lit the room like sunrise, and I felt tears prick my eyes. It was only a week, but already I ached at the thought of giving him back. Days slipped into weeks. Ava's calls grew fewer, at first weekly, then bi-weekly, until I realized she'd gone silent. I changed my Facebook status to "Mom," joking with friends who teased, "When's baby number 2?" But beneath the humor lay an unexpected truth. I was mothering him. I registered him at daycare, "Mother, Lena Carter," and joked with his providers about "Mommy's little guy." Elijah hit milestones, 1-month photos, the first tentative coup. I captured them on my phone like precious artifacts. When he rolled over at 3 months, I burst into applause, startling both of us, and he rewarded me with a gummy grin that lodged itself in my heart. I framed that photo, next to my grandmother's wedding picture on the mantel, and whispered, "You're safe with me, baby." By 6 months, friends no longer asked about number 2. They asked, "How's your little boy?" I beamed. Baby giggles echoed through my apartment as I played peek-boo. He squealed with delight whenever I popped up behind the sofa. My life had changed in ways I never saw coming, but every morning spent chasing him around the living room felt like purpose. I paid his pediatrician bills from my account. I planned his 6-month birthday, a tiny cake with whipped cream frosting and soft banana sprinkles. I invited my best friend, Sarah, who brought a plush giraffe wearing a party hat. We snapped photos of Elijah smashing cake into his hair, frosting smeared everywhere, and I thought, this is motherhood. One evening, after stories and warm milk, he reached for me and whispered in baby tongue, "Mama sai." My throat caught on that word. "Mommy?" he cooed, eyes wide and curious. My own mother, watching from the doorway, sniffed back tears. Ava never made it to the party. A week. It had been 6 months. I still hadn't heard from Ava. But here I was, mothering a child I'd sworn was just for a little while. I rocked Elijah to sleep each night, humming lullabies I learned as a child. He curled into me, safe and warm, his soft breath matching mine. When I tucked him into his crib, I'd pause at the door, hand on my heart. This was more than sisterly charity. This was love. Unexpected, unplanned, unwavering love. Yet in the quiet of my hallway, doubt crept in. What happens when his real mother returns? I kissed the top of his head and whispered, "I'll fight for you, sweet boy. You're mine to protect." And as I turned off the light and closed the door, I realized that a week had become a lifetime, and that promise, given in panic and hope, had bound my heart to Elijah's forever. The first sign of Ava's fading commitment came when her texts dwindled to cropped replies. Busy, later, call you. Her number went dead, then reappeared briefly with an unknown area code before vanishing again. Each unanswered call stung, but I held Elijah tighter, determined to fill the gap she'd left. By 9 months, I'd rearranged my work schedule to drop him off at Tiny Steps Daycare every morning. Clutching his sleepy hand, I whispered, "See you soon, baby boy," and watched his wide eyes follow me as I left. My colleagues noticed my new title. "Mommy Duties?" They'd smile. I shrugged, a mix of pride and guilt twisting my chest. At daycare pickup, Elijah ran into my arms, giggling and clutching his favorite stuffed bunny. I'd chat with his teacher, Ms. Rosa, about his progress, his first words, "Mama," unmistakably clear, his wobbly steps, and his love for finger paints. Each milestone solidified my identity. I wasn't just aunt or guardian. I was Mom. His first birthday was a small triumph, a smash cake covered in buttercream and rainbow sprinkles. He dove face first, frosting up his nose and hair, while I wiped tears of laughter from my cheeks. My roommate, Sarah, captured every sugary mess in photos. That night, I tucked him in and watched his eyelids flutter before sleep, whispering, "You're my greatest gift." I began calling myself Mommy automatically. "Mommy's making dinner," I'd sing as he crept at my feet. "Mommy's here for boo-boos," I'd soothe after the inevitable scraped knee. Each time, his chubby hand would pat my cheek, eyes full of trust. A friend remarked, "You're an amazing mom." I forced a smile. "She'll never come back," I murmured under my breath, more conviction than hope. When his second birthday rolled around, I enrolled him at Sprout Prep Preschool, filling out forms that listed me as legal guardian. I breezed past the question about biological mother's contact. Writing, unknown. Each stroke of my pen felt like cementing a new reality. Still, a nagging worry whispered that this sanctuary could shatter any day. By the start of preschool, his vocabulary exploded. Mommy led the parade of words, followed by hug, play, and love you, Mommy. One afternoon, he scraped his knee after chasing a falling leaf. I cleaned and bandaged him, and he tilted his head, tears welling, and whispered, "I love you, Mommy." My heart thundered. I swallowed hard, voice catching as I replied, "I love you too, baby boy." But as our bond deepened, the outside world pressed in. My boyfriend, Mark, tread carefully around my new life. He'd grown close to Elijah at our weekend potlucks, calling him "little dude." Yet once, he pulled me aside. "Have you thought about legal guardianship? Adoption? You need paperwork." I waved it off. "Ava will come back, I'm sure of it." Yet each week her silhouette grew more distant. My best friend, Joe, cornered me at brunch. "You're his mother in every way, except on paper. What if Ava returns and wants him back? You could lose custody." I forced a laugh. "A week, maybe 2, this was only temporary, remember?" My voice felt hollow even to me. Then came the evening knock. I opened the door to a tall, stern-faced man in a sharply pressed suit. My heart lurched. Child services? A lawyer? My mind raced as I gripped Elijah's hand behind my back. The lawyer cleared his throat, glancing at the file in his hand. "Is Elena Carter home?" he asked. I shook my head. "I'm Lena. How can I help you?" His gaze dropped to my companion. "I'll come back if now's not a good time." Before I could protest, a familiar voice rang out. "Let him go, Lena." It was Ava, brighter, more composed than I remembered, wearing a pressed blouse and heels. I stepped aside as she swept past, eyes locked on Elijah. He blinked up at her, puzzled by the new face. She reached out, and he recoiled, wrapping his arms tighter around my leg. My throat seized. Ava placed a hand on her hip, managing a shaky smile. "I'm sorry I vanished," she said with practiced calm. "But I'm back now, and I need my son." I squared my shoulders, protective instinct surging. "He's been with me for 2 years. He calls me Mom." The lawyer cleared his throat. Mrs. Carter, I have custody papers here. Your signature is required. Ava's eyes flicked to the document. Legal stuff, she said, voice distant. We'll do what we have to. My heart thudded. Our haven cracked open in an instant. I wrapped Elijah's arm around my neck protectively. He buried his face in my shoulder as Ava, with a flip of her hair, watched him like property reclaimed. In that moment, I realized this wasn't just a temporary guardianship. A battle for his heart and his future had begun. My arms tightened around him. My voice was soft but firm. You won't just walk away again. Ava's facade flickered, and the lawyer stepped forward, papers rustling. The room hummed with tension as our lives teetered on the edge of a wrenching choice. And for the first time, I understood, this child wasn't just my nephew. He was my family, my heart, my reason to fight. The courthouse loomed like a fortress of gray stone. I stood on the steps with Elijah clasped in my arms, his small hand curled around my finger. His backpack bounced on my hip, too big, a suitcase of dreams we'd built together. Behind us, Ava clicked her heels on the marble, the lawyer by her side. My heart pounded so loud I was sure every whisper echoed through the halls. Inside, the waiting area smelled of polished wood and nervous energy. I sat on a worn bench, Elijah's feet dangling. He fiddled with his bunny, eyes wide at the mix of suits and sunlit hallways. I inhaled, steeling myself. The papers Ava filed alleged temporary guardianship, but they tipped the scale toward her. Biological mother, legal rights, the state's preference. When our case was called, we shuffled into courtroom 2B. The judge, a stern woman with silver hair, peered over her glasses. Ava stood confidently, a professional suit replacing her former disarray. I moved to the defense table with my attorney, papers trembling in my hands, daycare records, medical forms, testimonials from friends and teachers. All proof that I'd been mom for 2 years. The proceeding opened with Ava's lawyer speaking. Your Honor, this is a case of simple guardianship. Mrs. Carter never intended to abandon her child. She requested temporary care while she stabilized her life. Now, she's ready to resume her rightful role. I watched the judge's face, neutral, inscrutable. My attorney stood next. Your Honor, Ms. Carter entrusted her son to my client, Lena, for a brief period. During that time, Lena provided full-time care, financial support, and emotional stability. The child calls her mom. We asked the court to recognize de facto parentage and require Ms. Carter to share custody. Ava's attorney leaned forward. De facto? The law is clear. Biological parents have priority. He clicked, handing the judge a copy of the state statute. Temporary guardianship does not equate to parental rights. We seek immediate restoration of full custody. My stomach flipped. The judge nodded and called witnesses. First, Ava took the stand. She told her version: financial chaos, a misguided decision, and full recovery, new job, stable housing, fiancé, a fresh start for her son. Her voice cracked when she admitted, I should never have given him up. But I was lost. Then my turn. I rose, voice taut. Judge, I fell in love with this child the moment I held him. I've cared for him every day since. He learned to walk and talk with me. He has doctors who call me mom, teachers who call me mom. I have proof. I lifted a photo of us at his preschool graduation, small cap askew, proud grin beaming. The judge examined it solemnly. I stepped back, heart hammering. Ava's tearful apology earlier felt hollow now, like a costume. Behind her tears, I saw a woman reclaiming a title she'd abandoned. After closing arguments, the judge leaned forward. I am sympathetic to the petitioner's situation, she began, voice measured, and I commend Ms. Davis for her devotion. However, the law grants biological parents primary custodial rights, especially when they seek to resume care. My throat tightened. She tapped the file. I hereby grant Ms. Carter sole legal and physical custody, effective immediately, with a transition period for the child's welfare. Beginning next week, the child will reside with his mother on alternating weekends for 2 weeks, then full-time after 30 days, unless circumstances dictate otherwise. Ava's face softened into relief. Mine crumpled. The bailiff called an end to the session. As Ava's lawyer helped her gather files, I sank into the chair, stunned. My attorney laid a hand on my shoulder. "I'm sorry, Lena. We did our best." I nodded numbly and scooped Elijah into my lap. His eyes, big and confused, flicked to me. He clutched the bunny, lips quivering. My heart shattered. Ava approached, careful steps. "Sweetheart," she cooed, reaching for her son. He shrank into me, burying his face. Ava lifted his chin, voice soft. "Mommy's here." Elijah's lower lip trembled. He clung to me, tears spilling. "Mommy," he whimpered, his first word after my own name, pleading for safety. My chest constricted as he pushed against her grasp. The judge's order hung between us, a slow handoff, a court-mandated goodbye. Under her gaze, Ava smiled feebly and gently urged Elijah toward her. His body stayed rigid, longing in his eyes. He looked to me, his true mother, before shuffling forward. I watched them leave, lawyer in tow, my arms suddenly empty. The courtroom doors closed on my shattered sanctuary. I whispered to the empty chair, "I love you, baby." Outside, the wind pinched my cheeks. I hugged Elijah's blanket, his old one, with doodles of our first year, close. The fight wasn't over. But the court had spoken. 2 years of love had been trumped by biology. As we walked down the steps, Ava carrying him like a prize, I realized I'd lost more than money. I'd lost the right to call him mine. And now, the battle for his heart would be waged in his tears, each moment a choice between what the law said and what love demanded. The weeks after the court ruling felt like living underwater. Muffled light, muted colors, every breath a struggle. The transition period began gently enough, alternate weekends. But as each handoff loomed, Elijah's bright eyes dimmed with dread. When Ava arrived for their first weekend together, dressed in new heels and clutching a folder of custody papers, I knelt in the foyer, holding Elijah's small hand. He pressed into my side, gaze fixed on the floor. "Mommy?" he whispered. "Stay with you?" My heart shattered. I hugged him close, whispering, "I love you, baby." Ava called his name softly. He stiffened, then turned away. That weekend, his laughter dropped into a fragile tremor, replaced by tears when he saw my apartment empty of his toys. Monday mornings grew unbearable. Ava's car idled at 7:45, and I'd watch from the window as Elijah trudged out, his backpack slipping off one shoulder. He never waved. His eyes never met mine. Daycare drop-off passed in silence. His teachers told me he'd cling to them all day, refusing to join activities. At home, evenings without him felt hollow. I replayed our memories, teddy bear picnics, mud puddle splashes, pajama dance parties, and my tears fell on his empty crib. I tried calling Ava for reassurance, but she'd beep out, "I'm busy. I'll call you later." Later never came. One night, he called at bedtime. His small voice crackled through the line, trembling. "Mommy, I don't like my new room. It's cold." I knelt by my own bed and whispered, "I miss you too, sweet boy. I'm here." But we both knew it wasn't enough. As days bled into weeks, his confusion turned to anger. He started wetting the bed, something he'd never done. I'd wake to wet sheets and his face buried in the pillow, cooing, "I wanted mommy." I'd clean him up, rocking him in my arms until sleep stole him again. My own nights were a haze of exhaustion and heartache. Visits dwindled. Ava insisted on shortening weekends. "He's homesick," she said, voice tight. "We're working on it." I watched from the driveway as they sped away, Elijah's tiny head pressed to Ava's shoulder. I pressed my palm to the glass, mourning a bond torn by law. At daycare pickup, his teacher met me with worried eyes. "He pushed another child today," she confessed gently. "He said, 'Get away from me, I want my mommy.'" "I'm concerned." I swallowed bile. My sweet boy was hurting others because he was hurting. I nodded, so sorry. I'll talk to him. In our evening call, he refused to answer. When I finally heard his voice, snapped and distant, he said, "I don't want to be your son anymore." Then he hung up. My sobs echoed in the empty apartment. I tried to maintain contact, texting photos, videos of him building blocks in my living room, voice messages of bedtime stories, yet each outreach went unanswered. After a month, I received a single text from Ava. "Stop bothering us. You had your turn." Panic and grief collided. I dialed Ava's number one last time. Her voicemail sounded clipped. "Ava Carter. Leave a message." I pressed record and spoke through tears. "Elijah misses me. He needs his other mother. Please let me help." But the line went dead. Days later, my phone buzzed with an email from the preschool director, a note of concern about Elijah's grades and behavior. "We're here for you if you need any support," she wrote. I realized I had no legal right to intervene. Ava held every card. Then one afternoon, I discovered a voicemail from Elijah's tiny voice. "Mommy, I'm sorry. I don't want to forget you. I love you." My chest tightened as I listened for the last "Mommy." Then the line clicked. No callback. No "love you" from his mother. Just silence. I tried calling him, but his number was disconnected. My texts bounced back. Ava had cut me off completely. I sat on the couch, cradling my phone like a lifeline that had snapped. The apartment felt too large, too empty. The mural of sunflowers seemed a cruel mockery of a life we built together. My tears fell onto the floral paint, and I realized I was alone, guilty of loving him too much in the eyes of the law. But as my sobs subsided, resolve flickered. I traced the lines of the sunflower petals. Those flowers grew toward light, no matter how long the winter. I whispered to the empty room. "I won't give up on you, my sweet boy." A new battle lay ahead, one I would not face alone. I would find a way to be the mother he remembered, and the one he needed. And I would fight, tooth and nail, until the world recognized that love's bonds aren't erased by biology. Months slipped by in a haze of unanswered prayers and empty evenings. I filled my days with work and therapy, painting community murals and teaching art classes, each bright stroke an act of survival. Yet every night, I reached for my phone, half expecting a message from Ava or a call from Elijah's daycare. Nothing came. Then one gray Tuesday afternoon, my phone rang with an unfamiliar area code. I answered, voice wary. "Ms. Carter? This is Linda Martinez from Child Protective Services." My heart stopped. "Yes?" She spoke gently but firmly. "We've received reports concerning your sister's fitness as a parent. We're opening an investigation." My breath hitched. What kind of reports?" "Allegations of neglect, missed medical appointments, and unstable housing. We need to ensure Elijah's safety. Are you willing to discuss temporary custody?" I sank into my sofa, clutching the phone like a lifeline. "Yes. Absolutely." Within hours, I found myself back in court, but this time on the side of right. Ava, gaunt and frantic, arrived clutching a folder labeled "Evidence of Stability." Rent receipts, clinic pamphlets, a glossy wedding invitation to her fiancé's sister's party. But the look in her eyes spoke panic, not conviction. CPS filed an emergency petition granting me temporary guardianship while they investigated. The courtroom felt colder this time, sterile, antiseptic. I sat with my attorney, unwavering this time. When the judge granted the order, relief and fear washed over me. That evening, I drove to the halfway house where Ava and Elijah now lived. The building's peeling paint and narrow halls felt foreign. I rose from the waiting bench as the guard called my name and led me up a flight of stairs. Ava burst out of the apartment, eyes red. "Please," she begged. "Don't take him." I opened the door to find Elijah curled on a small sofa, drawing with broken crayons. He glanced up and froze, jaw dropping. His tiny face crumpled. I dropped to one knee. "Hey, buddy," I whispered. His sobs erupted as he hurled himself into my arms. "Mommy!" he cried, burying his face in my shoulder. I rocked him, tears blinding my vision. He clutched my hair and cried, "I miss you!" Ava stood at the doorway, tears streaming. "I'm sorry," she whispered, voice breaking. But Elijah didn't look at her. His arms clung around me like roots around a tree. His faith in me had never wavered. That night, I brought him home. I tucked him into my bed, his bed, lining up his stuffed animals around him. He drifted to sleep with a contented sigh, head resting against my arm. I stared at his peace and felt fierce determination ignite in my chest. Over the next weeks, CPS interviews and home visits confirmed what I already knew: Ava's life was still too fragile to care for a child. Medical appointments were missed, rent was late, her fiancé had doubts. Each report reinforced the truth that our roles had reversed permanently. One crisp morning, the social worker called. "We're recommending we terminate Ava's parental rights and grant full custody to you." I exhaled, tears glistening. It was more than I'd hoped for, but also meant a lifetime of responsibility. I felt the weight of both honor and sacrifice settle on my shoulders. When the final court date arrived, Ava didn't fight. She nodded, tears in her eyes, as the judge signed the decree. Lena Carter, sole legal guardian and mother. I felt Elijah's small hand slip into mine, and we walked down the courthouse steps together, mother and son, bound not by biology but by love. That afternoon, I carried him to the mural we'd begun on our first Mother's Day, sunflowers reaching for the sky. We painted the final petals together, his tiny hand fitting perfectly in mine. As we stepped back, the mural glowed with new life. I lifted Elijah onto my hip. "We did it, kiddo," I whispered. He hugged my neck and nodded, sleepy and safe. In my apartment, I placed Grandma's locket, her gift of love, around my neck. I kissed Elijah's forehead and thought of Eleanor's words, "Love is our truest inheritance." I sat at my desk and penned a letter to Ava. "Thank you for bringing him into this world. I promise to protect him always." Then I ripped the paper into confetti and scattered it in the trash. No more ties to a life that almost stole him from me. Motherhood had found me by accident, and claimed my heart by choice. I was the woman who raised him, his real mother in every way that mattered. And as Elijah toddled across the room, calling, "Mommy, watch me!" I smiled, arms open, ready for every step, because this time, I would never let him go.